Hey guys, this is me Akash here for Biology Vibe. So today we're going to talk about abiotic factors. Okay, so the four major abiotic factors which we are going to talk about are temperature, water, light, and soil. We'll talk about the first one being the temperature. Okay, so we all know about something which are called enzymes. Okay, so enzymes are biocatalysts that work at a particular temperature. For example, in humans, it work at 37 degrees Celsius. So if we increase the temperature or if we decrease the temperature, the working of enzymes will be hampered, right? And so are metabolic activities too. So temperature is one of the most important abiotic factors which are affecting our biological processes. Okay, so ecologically most important factors, it decreases progressively from equator towards poles and from plain to the mountain tops. Okay, so this is your earth. Suppose this is your equator, this is your tropic of Capricorn, tropic of Cancer, this is your north pole, this is your south pole. So this is the equator. The point says that when you move away from the equator, the temperature will decrease towards the and move towards the pole, the temperature will decrease. This is the first part. Equator towards the poles, the temperature will decrease. Reason being, it's very simple. The sunlight received by this region, the equator region, is directly perpendicular to it, and then towards the pole, it's like slight. Distance is increasing. It's not direct. That's why obviously if you go from the equator towards the poles, the temperature will decrease. The second point I would say, like here, this is the base, this is the mountain. So as you go above, as the altitude increases, the temperature decreases. This is the second part. Plane towards the mountain tops, it will decrease progressively. So there are two major reasons for this. The first one being the pressure. Atmospheric pressure decreases when you move towards the top. Okay, so as the pressure decreases, the temperature also decreases. The second one being your concentration of greenhouse gases like CO2 or methane. So these gases basically trap your sunlight or the solar radiations out here and keep the surface warm. So as you move up, the concentration of these gases will decrease. As the concentration will decrease, there will be less trapping of heat and the temperature will definitely decrease. So the point, I hope the second point is clear. Now, polar regions and high altitudes have sub-zero level and the tropical deserts have greater than 50 degrees Celsius. This is a straightforward point. And now organisms also have a suitable range of temperature in which it will work. Based on that, they are divided into two, ural-thermal and the second one is stenothermal. The first one, ural means your wide, thermal means temperature. Similarly, steno means narrow and thermal means temperature. So the organisms that can tolerate a wide variety are called ural-thermal, and the organisms that can tolerate only low range, that's called stenothermal. So the example is humans, and here the example is penguin. So if you talk about yourself, you have like in summers, the temperature goes to 50 degrees, 60 degrees, like in desert, extreme desert, but like 47, 58 goes in plains at times. And like in plains, it's like 4 degree, 3 degree, but still humans are surviving and other mammals also are surviving because we have a property called homeostasis, that is maintenance of inner environment constant. So we have the ability to maintain the temperature at 37 degree Celsius. Okay, so that's why we come into ural animals. But penguins and python, these animals don't have that ability. They can tolerate only narrow range. If the temperature increases or decreases, their activity is hampered. Water, as we all know, like we all have studied the properties of water, like high specific heat capacity, and it's a universal solvent, all this stuff. So that's why water is one of the major components that's affecting our like the ecosystem health. And life originated from water. Productivity and distribution of plants depends upon water. For example, if there's high availability of water, the leaves will be broader because it can afford transpiration. Transpiration means the loss of water from the aerial parts of the plant. Transpiration, it can afford that, right? The water availability is high. But when you come to like the desert condition, when the water availability is low, that leaves are only converted into spines to minimize the water loss. So the productivity of an ecosystem, the distribution of plants, that depends totally on the water. And water is one of the major abiotic factors. So similar to that in the thermal one, here we have the salinity one. What being having like the your temperature is not the only thing. Like when it comes to water, it's come to how much salts are there in the water. It is having like the high salts or low salt, and similarly the organism surviving in it. Urine means wide, and haline here means salinity. So some organisms like green crab has the ability to tolerate higher salinity, and the second one, stenohaline, some organisms such as goldfish cannot tolerate like the high salinity. They can tolerate only specific part, so only tolerate narrow range. So based on the amount of salt present, it's divided into these two categories. So freshwater animals cannot survive in seawater, and vice versa. The seawater will not survive in freshwater. So the reason is it will cause osmotic problems. This point will be discussed in very much detail as there's a question at in the back exercises of NCERT. I'll discuss this question out there, and it's one of the major important concepts like this osmotic problems. We'll discuss about isotonic, hypertonic, hypotonic, and various concepts out there. So don't worry in that. Third factor being the light. Sunlight, source of energy, photosynthesis. We know about this, right? So green plants make their own food by the process called photosynthesis. They are utilizing CO2, H2O in the presence of light. They are making into glucose. Okay, so that's why light is again one of the major important contributors. Small plants can are adapted to photosynthesize at low light conditions. So this is your forest. There are tall plants, there are short plants. So the tall plants actually block the sunlight. So the lower sections of the forest gets less sunlight. So they have adapted in such a way that they have the ability to photosynthesize at lower light levels. This is what this point is saying. Flowering depends upon sunlight, obviously, and there are this is for plants and some for animals. Like when they'll find food, what are their reproductive strategies? They'll migrate during day or they'll migrate during night when the light intensity is low or when the light intensity is high. All these habit like behavioral patterns depends upon the light intensity. So that's why light is one of the major abiotic factors. Now comes the UV component. There are two major areas like visible means there's a big spectrum, but in that there's visible then like and spectrum called UV. So this UV light is quite damaging for organism. So various organisms have various abilities to survive this. Like sometimes some organisms are very much sensitive to it, some are have the lower sensitivity. Now the fourth one, soil. So soil is also one of the major factors. Reason being it's directly related to your flora and fauna. And the nature of soil depends upon climatic condition, the climate, the temperature is high or low. Weathering process, that means how it's made. Like there's a mountain out there, weathering process happened through air, or like it happened due to water. Whether that water the weathering process took place and the soil was made and it settled there only, or via water or via some external sources it was taken down into plains, it settled out there. All these properties define the nature of soil. And then comes there some characteristics of soil: soil composition, grain size, aggregation. Soil composition, like what are the macronutrients, what are the micronutrients, nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, what are the concentration of it? Is it high or is it low? It will depend, it will affect the flora, it will affect the fauna, all those things. Grain size, smaller grains or larger grains. Larger grains means the surface area will be low. Smaller grains surface area would be large. Aggregation, they are compactly closely linked, or like what is their water holding capacity, what is their aeration capacity. All these characteristics are taken into account when it comes to characteristics of soil. So soil is thus also one of the major abiotic components. So it's soil, so it's water, so it's light and temperature. These four are the major abiotic factors that affects the ecosystem. So that's kind of it guys for this video, and I hope this video helped you. Thank you.